Every update, we get a new hypercharge, and sometimes that hypercharge can be the savior of a brawler and put them in the S tier, or keep them in whatever horrible spot they belong. Today we'll be looking at the worst hypercharges to see what makes them bad, and conclude what makes a hypercharge bad. Starting off with Jean's hypercharge, it basically triples your super and makes it faster. And this is the problem on its own. While pulling an opponent, you normally spam attacks at them, and in case, use the push gadget to land another hit. However, this hypercharge, which makes the super faster, gives you less time to react. And pulling multiple opponents at once is a death wish, so this hypercharge basically nerfs Jean. The same can be said about Brock's hypercharge, which lowers your damage output. This is why these hypercharges are used only for the stat buffs. So rule number 1, if the hypercharge nerfs the brawler. A popular example of a bad hypercharge is Pearl's, because the super knocks back opponents, and the hypercharge puts a burning zone with mediocre damage. The thing is, Pearl is not a controller, she's a damage dealer. Same can be said about Charlie's hypercharge, which spawns spiders at the start of the super, which makes those spiders vulnerable to any damage. Instead, they should have been at the end of the super, because there's this popular gadget and super combination. Daryl's hypercharge can also be mentioned, because what it does is spray some bullets around, and we deal laughable damage. From these three examples, we can conclude that these hyperchargers add a tiny little mechanic that doesn't do anything. A gimmick, I would say. Would have been better if it wasn't a spiral. Something like a curveball pattern. Rule number 2, if the hypercharge adds something that no one asked for. Now we'll be going to a hypercharge like Sprouts. And as we know, it's only good in heists, because the wall deals DPS, and I've never seen it actually work, because the opponent has to be glued to the wall just to maybe get some damage. Bull's hypercharge gives him an 80% shield while dashing, and while that makes him an assassin, once the dash is over, you're back to your normal weak state. A temporary effect that barely lasts. Just like Miko's hypercharge, which takes way too long to charge. Basically, it gives him a 1.5 second stun, and that's it. Those opponents who have gadgets or dashers or jumpers, they can just escape the super. Had he only been faster during the fly, Sprout should have a wider area of damage and maybe reduce the supercharge rate from hitting Bull while he's dashing. Same for Emza's hypercharge, because it gives her a pushback on the first impact of the super, and that's it. Make the pushback every second, I guess. That sounds kind of broken, but I don't know. Rule number 3, if the hypercharge gives a very short effect. We'll be moving on to two basic brawlers, Shelly and Colt. Shelly has hypercharge, just makes the super a bit wider. Maybe a bit more damage with the stat buffs, but really nothing else. I think if the super would pull, it would have been much better. Why did they give that to El Primo? Because Shelly needs close range just to get some damage. Same problem for Colt, and Nani just gets a bit more damage, and the problem is because Peep, or whatever its name is, gets bigger, it actually becomes harder to actually hit opponents, because walls get in the way even more. Destroying walls on the way would have been better, but maybe just make it a limited amount of walls, because we don't want the whole map to be cleared. Rule number 4, if the hypercharge modifies a tiny aspect of the super. Now the next type is interesting, and it includes Poco's hypercharge, so it converts the excess heal into a decaying shield for teammates. Might sound good, but this changes the way Poco's super is actually played, because you use it to heal teammates, and wasting it while your teammates already have full HP doesn't sound very good. Plus, the super's heal is the exact same. I would have mentioned Gray's hypercharge if it wasn't for the fact that the shield can actually be helpful. Sure, people mix the hypercharge version with the normal one, which doesn't really make them teleport, instead they just go back to where they were, but the shield is helpful, so no. However, 8-bit also has a problematic hypercharge, because normally you put the turret somewhere safe behind the wall, but the hypercharge makes you put it somewhere open because you want to use it as a Jesse turret all of a sudden. Long story short, these two hypercharges make the brawler play in a completely different manner. Okay, no way he just put it near Surge's hypercharge. Rule number 5, if the hypercharge makes the brawler play their super the exact way they shouldn't, make hypercharge included. In conclusion, a hypercharge is bad if it nerfs the brawler's super, adds a useless gimmick, gives a short effect, makes a minor stat change, does not fit the super's playstyle. What do you think makes a hypercharge bad? Comment down below. If you know any point that I did not mention in the video, I'd be happy to know it. Also, don't forget to vote in the community posts to choose whether you want card concepts for Clash Royale without animation, or brawler concepts for Brawl Stars without animation either. That being said, I'll see you in the next one.